Hello, and welcome to your very first AutoCAD modeling learning assignment. This is modeling learning assignment number 1. I believe I named this shapes and figures. We're going to be talking about the basics of AutoCAD, get a little bit of an introduction into how to use AutoCAD. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. Now, actually before I dive right in, as a result of this video, you are going to be producing a PDF drawing using AutoCAD software. The PDF drawing will have your name and some information about you, so that is specific to you. I will be providing my example for you to consider and try to replicate it. And I will be going through and kind of giving you a step-by-step of how I do this, what I'm doing, and what I'm expecting of you for your assignment. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive right in. So this is AutoCAD 2023. I downloaded this on my computer. You'll notice up here it has my name. This is the Autodesk account. For you, you're going to have an account. It's going to have to be a valid account, and then you will have to sign into that account in order to be able to use the AutoCAD product. So just keep that in mind. When you downloaded it, you created an AutoCAD account. When you use AutoCAD, you will have to sign into it. Now when you open AutoCAD, this is the Model tab. You'll notice down here it says Model. Down here it says Layout. We'll get to the layouts towards the end of this video. The Model tab, though, is kind of where everything big happens. Now, just as a word of warning, I'm doing this on a laptop. I always have a mouse with a center scroll wheel. When I use AutoCAD, navigating in the AutoCAD environment is kind of a difficult process because you have to be able to do multiple things all at once. So here, if I press the center scroll wheel down and drag my mouse, you'll notice that my cursor changes into a hand and that my screen moves side to side. This is called panning. If you want to pan, hold the center mouse wheel down and scroll side to side. Okay, the next feature that we need to talk about is zooming. If you want to zoom in and zoom out, you scroll the center wheel. You'll notice that the squares on my screen get larger or smaller. I should draw a quick rectangle or something for reference. There we go. So if I scroll up on my mouse wheel, it zooms in. If I scroll down on my mouse wheel, it zooms out. That's just a very, very simple process there. Oh, I should have kept that. So I also know some type commands. You may catch me doing that. I will try to be very explicit about how I do that. Here now I've got an object. I'll quickly create another object, put it over here. I'll show you how to do these later on in the video, so don't worry about the fact that I haven't given you this. If I have these two objects and I want to select them, there's two ways that I can select them. If I click and I drag down and to the right, or if I click and drag up and to the right, you'll notice that this rectangle is blue. If I click down here at this point, neither of these objects are selected. A blue rectangle says it will only select objects that are inside, that are fully inside of the blue rectangle. Okay, so here, clicking and dragging down and to the right or up and to the right, I get this blue rectangle. It only selects what's inside of it. On the other side, if I want to select this circle and this square, and I don't want to have to fully go over them, I can click down and to the left or up and to the left. And you'll notice that now it's kind of a dashed box that has a green color to it. If I do that, now anything that is touching that box or inside of that box is selected. So here, if I just want to select this circle, I can click down and to the left. If I do that with this one, I have to have the circle fully inside, because if it's not fully inside, it won't select it. Here, if the green border even touches the shape, it will select it. So that's kind of the basics of how to navigate in this space. Some zooming, panning, and then the selection tools. You can also just outright click on an object. Now, once you've clicked on an object, AutoCAD doesn't let you unclick an object. You want to try to do something, you want to run a function, you don't want to have everything selected. Here is where the escape key is your best friend. You're going to want to hit the escape key often. You'll notice that command cancel pops up here. This down here is your command bar. You can type commands into it. If you just start typing, it'll automatically input that into the command bar. I think you can actually hit star cancel. Star. No, apparently you can't. Huh, it's interesting. So you just have to hit the escape key. You're going to be hitting the escape key a lot. Anytime you're in trouble in AutoCAD, just start hitting the escape key. That will get you back to your base route. Because you may notice that there's a command down here in the command line. It's asking you for something, you don't really know what it's doing. Like here, if I click the command line now, down here, will say specify opposite corner or fence polygon, see polygon. Well, if I don't want to be selecting anything right now, if I hit the escape key, it will exit out of that. So the escape key is going to be your best friend in all of these AutoCAD assignments. All right, now I'm going to show you how to do some basic drawing. But before that, I like to set up my workspace a little bit. Down here at the bottom right, this is a whole bunch of different menu features that are available. You can switch between model and paper space. This displays a drawing grid. If I click it, you'll notice the grid turns on and off. I usually leave the grid on in my model space just because I like to see whether or not I'm zooming in or zooming out. That's helpful for me. You can also turn it on to snap mode where basically you can only draw 90-degree lines. I never turn that one on. Restrict orthogonality. What this is this, if I'm drawing a line, I can draw that line at any angle. Well, if I restrict orthogonality, now it only goes at 90-degree angles. Again, I tend to not have this one selected. I go with the polar tracking mode instead because that's a little easier to work with. Here, isometric drafting, I've never used that. Here also, their object snap tracking. You are going to want to have object snap turned on. It's your OSNAP settings. It's kind of fun to say. This arrow right here will tell you which objects it will snap to. Now what I would encourage you to do is when AutoCAD is installed, it does not have midpoint selected. I would select midpoint, and I also usually select quadrant. It allows you to select the corners of a circle. No, a circle doesn't really have a corner. If you're having trouble selecting an object or wanting to select to an object, you can change your OSNAP settings by just clicking this arrow. It's kind of a fast menu item. I really don't touch the rest of these settings. In this class, it tends to be a little bit more of advanced stuff. I don't need to. Now up at the top, we have multiple menu features as well. Here, this is the home menu. You can see there are line, polyline, center, arc, rectangle. If you do the drop down, it'll give you a polygon. Here's an ellipse. If you give it the drop down, it'll give you different ways you can draw an ellipse. Here's the hatch. If you do the drop down, you can do different types of hatches, although I typically just use hatch. So these are all the drawing commands, and similarly you can also access all of these commands through the command line. So I tend to be an old school AutoCAD user. I really like typing because it just takes a little bit longer to go up here, find the item, click it, go up here, find the item, click it. If you just type it in, there's a number of fast connects. Like here, if I want a line, if I just type line, you'll notice line comes up first. If I just type the letter L, line pops up first. If I hit the L, now I can draw a line. Okay, you can also go up here and click line and then draw a line. To do a line, you basically have to specify 2 points. Now, in AutoCAD, AutoCAD is very strongly linked to an overarching a coordinate system. The coordinates of every point, every feature, they're all very finely decided so that when you go to draw a line exists between 2 very succinctly defined points. And I believe AutoCAD even stores the location of that point down to like 8 figures. It's very, very precise about where the points go. So here, if I want to create a line, I can either click and drag like this, and just start putting down lines, or I can put in escape. So here, if I go back and click line, or type in L or line and hit enter, I can start with an actual coordinate point. So you may want some really fine-tuned drafting. For example, let me see if I have one close by. I actually drew up some engineering paper that we've been using for our engineering program. And you'll notice that I had to draw a grid for this. Well, I used the I used what we have for this coordinate system to very finely decide where the starting and end points were, because that gave me some really fine-tuned control, so I can get very accurate drawing here. So here, let's say I want to start at the origin, 0, 0. You hit comma to go between the X and Y axes, and then I can draw a line from the origin. And I can just click and draw a few lines. Now the other option is, let's say once I draw 0, 0, I want to draw from the origin. I can now draw, you'll notice that the number that's pointing up on the screen, that is the distance away from the origin. Basically goes into polar coordinates where you have a distance and an angle. So here it's showing 13 degrees at 52.6 units. Well, let's say I don't want to do polar, I want to actually go map to another point. I can type 4, 0, and that will draw a line over 4 units and up 0 units, so just over 4 units. That's another way of drawing a line. Or I can draw it at 58, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the arrow symbol. This is the, I believe it's a less than symbol, so shift, comma, or less than symbol, and now this will allow me to draw an angle. So here I can draw it at 58 at an angle of 30 degrees. And that's another way of drawing a line. So there's a lot of different ways that you can input the points on a line. You'll also notice that because I have my OSNAP settings set up, I can actually click on the endpoint of a line. I also have midpoint selected, so here midpoint shows up as a triangle. It also then says midpoint. If I had a circle, I could do tangent, I could do perpendicular lines. All of those things, you can set that up in your OSNAP setting. All right, so for the first part of your assignment, I want you to just draw some lines. Now, I will want you to draw some lines that come from your origin, so they need to start at 0, 0. And then after that, I just draw some lines. Get some familiarity with drawing lines. Some people like to draw some really elaborate things. For me, I'm just giving you what I want. I just want some lines, okay? Now, the difference between a line and a polyline is here, if I select this line, I am only selecting this line. If I delete that line is now deleted. If I do it with a polyline, all of these lines are connected. So here I can draw a line here, 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 hit escape. Now, if I go to select that line, it acts all as one object. So that's kind of the difference between a line and a polyline. There are a lot of really good uses for polylines. Polylines are really helpful anytime you have a shape that you want to make smaller or larger. You can offset those sizes. And then there's also some interesting editing features. You can also make blocks out of polylines. You can also make extrusions out of polylines. We're not going to be using polylines as much in this class, just because I don't use them as much. I'll show them to you if I use them, but I don't really care whether or not you use a line or a polyline. You can use a p-edit command and actually turn a series of lines into a polyline. So again, not really all that concerned. Next shape that I want you to work on is a circle. You'll notice if you do this, there's a number of different ways to draw a circle. Here you can do a tangent, tangent, tangent. So here if I pick tangent, 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 I can pick 3 of my lines that I already have existing and create a circle that is tangent to all of them, and it will just automatically build a circle that is tangent to all 3 of those lines. But there's also other ways of drawing a circle. Typically, the way that you do it in the default is it's a center radius. So here you click a point where the center is, you click another point defining the outside radius, draw a couple of circles. So here I could draw a circle. The type command is you can either type in circle, or you can actually just type the letter C. C is the shortcut for circle, so I can hit C, enter, and I can draw a snowman. It's going to make me do it every time, isn't it? C, C. See, as I can tell you, the typing is nice because you don't actually have to move your cursor. And I'm very used to this, but in today's world, the menu commands are much cleaner than they used to be in AutoCAD. So, there we go. I drew a snowman. You can draw whatever you want, but I do need a couple of circles, at least 2 in your assignment. Now, for the next shape, an arc is kind of like a circle. Here it has, there are several ways of defining an arc. You have a 3-point arc. This is, 3-point arc is usually defined start, midpoint, end. But then you can also do the start of the arc, the center point of the arc, and then the end point. You can also do the start, the center, and then how much angle it has. You have all of these different features. I typically will either use the 3-point arc or the start, center, end one. Here I'm just going to do a 3-point arc, start, middle, end. So draw 2 circles, a bunch of lines, draw 1 arc. The next shape that we're going to be doing is just a simple rectangle. If you click on the rectangle up here, it'll have you define 2 corners. Now there is another cheaper way of finding it, and that is REC, or you can actually spell out rectang. I typically just write REC. R is just for redraw. It's for if you're having issues with your thing. You'll also notice down here that there's a couple of features. You can change some of these features. So here I can hit C for chamfer, hit C, enter. You'll notice the C is blue. That's the shortcut, or else I can just write out the word chamfer. But here it's got the blue C that says I only need to type the letter C, hit enter, and now it'll have me specify what the chamfer distance is. I'll have the chamfer distance be 1. And then I'll have the second distance also be 1. So here, and now if I draw my rectangle, you'll notice every one of those corners has a chamfer on it. So as you're drawing some of these shapes, you can actually use some of the modifiers down here on the command line to modify what you're doing. So it's not a bad idea to be comfortable with some of those modifications and how to do them. Okay, 2 more. I want a polygon. Now the polygon, first of all, it wants you to enter in what number of sides. So here I can click, but it doesn't really do anything. And even up here it says enter the number of sides. The default is 4. It wants to draw a square. Anytime it draws a polygon, it is a regular polygon where everything has equal shape, angles, and side lengths. So let's go ahead and try to draw a triangle. I want to draw a nose for this snowman up here. Now the next thing it's going to do is it's going to ask, where do you want this to be centered at? So I click center. Now you have 2 options, inscribed or circumscribed. In inscribed polygon, the points of the polygon will be on the circle. A circumscribed polygon, the midpoints of the lines for the polygon are on the circle. So it's just a difference of, do you want the midpoints of the lines or do you want the endpoints of the lines to be on the circle? Here I'm going to draw an inscribed. Inscribed is smaller than circumscribed. So here you can either type I or C, or you just hit enter. The default value is I want to draw an inscribed item. So here we go, and then I click to identify another point, and I have a triangle. Now I'm going to draw 1 more polygon, so I'll go back up here to polygon. It'll ask me the number of sides. I'm going to go ahead and draw a stop sign, so I'll hit 8. I'll have it be centered over here. This time I'll do circumscribed. Circumscribed is just bigger. You notice that I'm clicking on the midpoint of that line because the midpoints for a circumscribed polygon will be on the center. You can nicely draw a circle of distance 10 and it will connect to the midpoints of all of these lines, whereas an inscribed circle, it would connect to the vertices of these lines. All right, so this is what I expect you to draw. Number 1, lines. Number 2, at least 2 circles. Number 3, an arc. Number 4, a rectangle. You can draw 2 rectangles if you want. Number 5, I want you to draw 2 different polygons with 2 different shapes, 2 different numbers of sides. So you're going to do a triangle and an octagon. It has to have 2 different numbers of shapes. Once you've done that, we've done all of our drawing that we need to do for this. Our next step is you have to come up with a PDF. So this is where we switch from the Model tab to the Layout tab. Now if I just click on Layout tab, what it's going to do is it's going to have kind of a zoomed out version of this entire thing. This feature right here, this is a black box. This is called a viewport. If you notice up here on your menu items, when you're on the Layout tabs, you have this feature called a layout. If you go to here, you have the ability to insert viewports. We're going to go a little bit more into this later, but for now we're just gonna leave that. So here I'm gonna hit escape. What I'm gonna have you do for this assignment is you need to go to Canvas. Under the Project 1 Park Design, there is a donecad.dwt file. You need to download this file to your computer. Okay, so this is again under Canvas, under this class in the module section, under Project 1 Park Design, donecad.dwt. This is going to be the CAD template that we use for all of our layouts for this entire course. So you're going to need to be very comfortable with this. Now if I go back into AutoCAD, I right click on layout, and then what this gives me an option is, okay, what do I want to do with this layout? Well, I want to create a new layout from template. So I go to the from template option, click on that, and it's going to pop up an open menu. Now here these are some of the templates that AutoCAD already has existing. Some of these are different sizes. You'll notice some of them have different title block layouts. Well, I'm going to navigate to my donecad.dwt file that is uploaded. So I'll go ahead and hit open. And notice it wants to bring in ENG sheet. That's the only template file I've created. It's an 11.5 by 8 inch, I believe, 8 by 11.5. And then you'll see an ENG sheet pop up at the bottom. If I go ahead and switch to it, you'll notice that this is all already built, and this is much nicer looking than just this layout right here. So we're gonna be doing some edits here. First thing you need to do is go to your Layout tab up at the top, go up to Rectangular Viewport. Okay, you're gonna want to click, drag 2 spaces. This is gonna put in a viewport that is just exactly identical to this one, just whatever size you make it. It'll be zoomed out so that everything shows up. Okay, that's the first step. The next thing that you need to do, I hate the grid on this. I really like the grid in the Model tab. I like the grid back here, but in the Layout tab, I do not like the grid. So we're going to be doing something called switching between paper space and model space. You'll notice down here this says paper. If I double click here, it changes to where now this says model. I am actually able to directly draw lines onto my model from the paper view, even though I'm in the layout. And you'll also notice that if I pan or zoom in this view, it changes it. So I'll try to get this back to where it's roughly in the middle again. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the grid lines. Okay. Now you can tell that you're in this because it has this plus mark and it gives you some viewport controls. You'll also notice that you've got your WCS icon up here. You've got some pan tools. You have all of the commands that are available to you. Okay, now that I've switched off the grid, I want to get out of this. There's 2 ways of doing it. The old school way is you double click out here. However, you'll notice that if you're really zoomed in and you can't see that area, you just have to click down here and hit model to change it to paper space, or you can cycle between them. There's also a type command if you're here. It's just P space, which does the same thing. It switches back to paper space. Now that I'm in paper space, if I pan or if I zoom in, I'm zooming into the paper itself. Okay. Now, one last step before we go ahead and print this. You need to give this drawing a name, so I'm going to double click down here. Okay, and when you do that, it brings up the Enhanced Attribute Editor screen. Now this is going to ask me for a bunch of things. What is the drawing name? Specify the name of the drawing if you need to be specific about the contents. I gave some very explicit instructions when I set up this template about what you should do for each of these values. So if you need to read through them just to refresh yourself, go ahead. But what we have is we have drawing name. So here the name is going to be shapes and features. Okay. And then I'll go down here. Class name. The default value is EGR 210, Fundamentals of Engineering Design. You don't have to change that one. Units for the design. We didn't really use units, so we can just leave it as inches. Scale. Here, this is not to scale. So I'm just going to type in NTS. Even though the default is a 1:1, we're not doing this one to scale. We'll do scales in a later video. Here you will need to change your initials to yours. So here my initials are CJS, so I will change initials to that. And then lastly, you have page numbers. Now there's an automated way of doing this, and I never figured out how to do that nicely, so instead of doing that, I make you manually fill out your page numbers. I'm going to go ahead and apply, and then hit OK. And then you'll notice that this updates. So there we go. This is the sheet that you're going to be handing in. Now how do you plot this sheet to a PDF? I only accept PDFs. Do not hand in your DWG file. If you hand in a DWG file, I will not open it. You will not get credit for this assignment because you have to hand this in. What you do is you right-click on the sheet that you want to print, and we're only going to be plotting one sheet, so we'll just go to plot. It says, hey, we notice you have multiple ones. Well, I only want to plot a single sheet, so I'm just going to continue on with that. We have to set up a plotter. Here, AutoCAD has a number of PDF plotters. Usually I just do the AutoCAD PDF general documentation. It'll automatically fit the right page size. It'll want to print 1:1, which you should want. You can actually change the size of this. You'll notice it's 8.5 by 11. I kept saying 11.5. And now I hit OK. It'll ask me where to save it. So I'll go into my desktop. I'll go save it into my folder. I always like to have a clean folder for all of these. Oh, come on. Okay, and then I'll create a new folder for AutoCAD. These are some of the SolidWorks MLA assignments. I'm going to redo them this semester, so that is what it is. I'm going to change this PDF drawing, and this is going to be AutoCAD MLA 1, shapes and features, hit enter. I'll do some progress. I think the PDF usually pops up right afterward. Yep. And there we go. Now you'll notice that this sheet, for some reason, is down here at the corner. I do not know why it did that. I will figure that out. We'll fix it for the next video. For now, if you just hand it in to me like this, we'll be good. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to save this drawing. I'm going to save it to my same place that I just saved the PDF. Boy, I'm really bad at double clicking. Apparently single clicking too. And we'll go ahead and save this as MLA 1. Enter, and there we go. Now for your assignment, you will be handing in the PDF that we exported. Basically, it's this page. You'll be handing this in. So make sure to get that handed in by the due date, and I will see you in the next modeling learning assignment video.